Tonight, we have the lovely Daina from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We're going to talk about childhood trauma. We're going to talk about codependency. And oh yes, we are going to talk about debilitating, terrible, insidious, this chronic disorder we call addiction. Oh my, it's my favorite. Here we go.
I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson in Saskatchewan and Northern Alberta. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and promoting change in the fields of substance use and psychological health and safety. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and occupational health and safety. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knocks Talks.
And I'm back. Okay, before we get started tonight, just a heads up, towards the end of the show, when we move into the viewer's voice, I will be putting a link in the chat if you want to click on that and join the live stream and tell Daina how grateful you are to have her in your life, or to just say something. You can click on that link, or you can copy and paste it into your search bar, and let's get on with it. What's up, Daina?
Hey, Daniel. How's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am well.
Are you ready?
As ready as can be. Can't screw it
Okay.
up. It's my story, right?
Well, we'll see. Let's go into the flashback. That's the wrong one. Did I screw this up? I totally screwed it up. Okay, well.
I love it, Dan.
Okay, so that's the next one. So let's go into the flashback. Let's see. Oh, and we forgot to do the icebreakers too. So let's do the icebreakers.
All right.
Question number 1. Have you ever not punched someone because you knew you'd have to say sorry after?
No. Not punch someone. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
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 Do you ever miss living in denial?
I still go there sometimes.
Oh, so you just visit once in a while?
Just once in a while.
Okay, one last question. Have you ever said something and you knew it was wrong, but it felt so good that you're okay with it?
Uh-huh.
Care to tell us?
Well, I mean, back in the day, nothing felt good, but we all said things that we thought were right at the time. Whatever got us moving on, right?
Indeed. Okay, so apparently I didn't. You know what? We're going to take a minute here and we're going to do this. We're going to do this properly. 1 second. It's the flashback! Yes! Okay. Tell us, Daina, what was it like growing up?
Well, I grew up in a middle-class white household. We had lots of family barbecues. I just remember visiting Grandma and Grandpa's a lot. We traveled a lot. We did camping. I encountered a lot of abuse as a child. That started from as young as I can remember, as 4, and continued till I was about 11. And I just, like, I don't have a lot of childhood memories, but the abuse stands out to me a lot. And I'm still, I still get memories coming through my recovery, right? Because I'm constantly working on stuff. We disconnect so much with that trauma.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't feel safe at home?
I felt safe at home, but there were places where I didn't feel safe.
Yeah. What was school like? How were your relationships?
Well, I mean, I started using, when I was 11, and I think was just from the pain that I was in. I became pregnant at 14 with my son. So I was a baby. Like?
Discovering, like, when you got the news, like how far along were you before you got the news?
So my mom picked me up from school, took me to a doctor September 10th, and I was due November 27th. So I was 7.5 months pregnant. And the only thing I can tell you, Dan, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but I think I may have thought that it was going to go away because I was 14 years old. I had no idea what was actually going on.
Mm-hmm. So you were getting bigger, and like your parents finally said, we got to go to the doctor.
Yeah. And, I remember wearing baggy clothes, but I honestly, like, I have no recollection of what was going on in my head. Like, how do you not know you're pregnant?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, surely you must have seen in something, like, we all know what pregnant women look like.
Yeah. And like, I have no answers to that. It sounds absolutely insane. I know.
Well, fair enough. How did your parents handle it? Like, how did that change the dynamic?
That didn't go well, because I was so young. The option for abortion was non-existent. So their idea was that I should give this baby up for adoption. But I was so selfish and self-centered at that time. Like, I remember thinking, like, okay, first of all, I'm pregnant, right? So, but now I'm going to have this little human that is going to love me unconditionally, and I'm going to have control over it, right? And that's something that I struggled with a lot, is I just wanted love and I wanted control.
And you were aware of these things at the time?
No. Looking back, now that I'm in recovery and really processing through a lot of these hardships that I've had in my life, I'm able to now look through it and really just understand where I was at.
Mm-hmm. And at the time, though, do you remember what you were thinking at the time? Like when your mom said, or your dad said, you got to give this kid up?
I was just like, the answer is no. Like, I started seeing a counselor at I think it was the Family Support Center at that time. And I just was against the fact that I was going to give this baby up. Mm-hmm. Like, I just needed this baby. And I didn't know why at the time, but it was because I needed love, that unconditional love.
And so then you had the child, and then what? Come home from the hospital?
So I asked my dad if I could come home. And of course, like, they allowed me back home. But I mean, I was not a good young mother. I would disappear for weeks at a time, leaving my son with my parents, just out partying all the time. And then when it was time to rest, I would come back and try to be a parent. And then I remember leaving home. I moved in with a friend and her parents. And it was, I think I was 16. Mm-hmm. 16 is when I left home. So why? I lived. Why? Well, so when I was 12 years old, I also found adoption papers that told me that the person I thought was my dad my entire life wasn't my dad. And I felt I just felt like I didn't belong, right? I didn't belong there. They didn't really want me. I was just, because my mom was pregnant with me, right? Like these things that went through my head, I just didn't feel like I belonged there.
So your mom was your real mom, but your dad was an adopted father?
Yeah, he's been my dad since day one. He adopted me when I was 6 months old. He has been the father in my life since I have been born.
And
but he's just not my biological father, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
means something totally different to me today than it did when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that is easy to see in a new light now that you've had some time under your belt.
Absolutely. And like I lived in the Bethany home for a while that the program was. I don't remember how long the program was.
Okay. So hang on now. You said when you left home, you moved in with a friend.
Yes. So I moved in with a friend and her parents. Very dysfunctional home. It was dysfunctional, right?
Yeah.
So it just allowed me to stay in dysfunction. Excuse me. Because at my parents' house, like there were rules. They tried to have like a normal household, right? And I was always chaotic.
Yeah. And your daughter came with you to this place?
So I had my son at 15, and then my son is the one that came with me to the Bethany home. And what Bethany home was is it helped unwed mothers, teenage unwed mothers, learn how to parent, learn how to grocery shop, learn how to cook. And then, you're there for so long and you moved up to the place where you had kind of your own apartment and you kind of got a feeling of what living on your own was. And then I was free. And then I got, social services got me my own place.
So they got you your own place. Did they offer you like any services, any transitional programming?
I don't remember them offering me any. It was like, here you go. This is what we've taught you. Now go live a life. Yeah. And so living on my own, Dan, at 16, I was close to 17 at this time. Like this was just an invitation for a party house. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's what it was.
That's what I would have done. Yeah.
Well, that's what it was,
Let's go.
Yeah. And then,
and
shortly.
The bills were all paid.
Everything was paid. But, I was very irresponsible. Many times I overspent what I was supposed to be spending on groceries or whatever. And my parents, they supported me and they helped me out in those times. And I am so grateful for that. But I also look at it now as like enabling, right? I took advantage of that to the fullest.
So looking back now, what would you think they should have done?
Well, help me find resources to, budgeting or like get in contact with my social worker or, because I really found that I was enabled in so many ways. And it's not anybody's fault for them helping me. It's something I've also learned in recovery of what is helping somebody and what is enabling them.
Mm-hmm.
So then
were your parents? Sorry.
No.
Where were your parents? Go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, you.
Oh, you do it.
Okay. Where were your parents during this time? Like, were they still in your life, or were they just like, like, here's some money, just leave us alone?
No. Like they've always been in my life. Other than a few times where I was like, screw you guys. I'm going to, cut off contact with you and I'm not going to let you see my kids. And it was because they were trying to correct the shitty mom I was being. I was not being a good parent, but I couldn't see that.
Yeah. Where was the children's fathers?
So my son's dad has never been in his life. And so when I was 17, I got pregnant with Brittany, my daughter, and her dad died when she was 4 months old. So in that time, that was another, I remember, it's like I remember every painful time, right? Because when there was a painful time, that's where all hell broke loose. that's where I started partying. I started, drinking and using and finding unhealthy people to hang around with. I wasn't looking for any kind of structure, any productivity, nothing.
Mm-hmm. So the loss of your child's father, you did not take that well.
No.
Were you close with him?
Well, like we had kind of separated prior to him passing. But I was in Moose Jaw for actually a funeral when I got the call that he was in a car accident in Edmonton. And unfortunately, I had never, so we had spoke one time a week before that funeral and talked about the possibility of making things work. But after he was in the accident, he was in a coma and I never got to speak to him again. So there was a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of unanswered stuff.
So time goes on and you meet somebody new. How did that go?
Just a little bit. So after my daughter's dad passed away, I had run into a man who was 21 years my senior. And I started hanging around with this man, and he had all the money, right? He supplied my alcohol, he supplied my drugs, he supplied the rides, he supplied the babysitters, and I was with him for 6 years. And it became a very abusive, damaging relationship in my life and definitely in my kids' life. We haven't talked about that a lot, but I can tell you from what I got out of that relationship, there's no way that those kids could have came out of that and not had some damage. Mm-hmm. Right?
Did you live with him?
No. So there was a couple times that I lived with him, but at the end, we stayed separated. Just because I had no way of getting out or to run if I was living with him. And the icing on the cake towards the end is, I was confined to a farmhouse for 8 hours and I was beaten. I was raped. I was forced to phone a married couple and tell them that I had cheated on her husband with him, which was untrue. But I mean, I was done taking the beatings, And I remember running into this couple, Dan, a few years later, and I was so ashamed and so embarrassed and I felt so bad. But thankfully, they came up to me and we were able to talk it out, and they knew what kind of a man this guy was. So they understood where I was coming from, and they held no ill will with me, and I'm so grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. So how did that end?
Before I physically left, I started going to a abused women's group. And I remember going to these groups, and because I felt so alone and everybody knew what was going on, and I would just isolate because I didn't want to hear what anybody was saying. But when it came time for me to be ready to face it, I went to these groups and I started connecting with these women, and I started feeling like I'm not the only one. And I was scared enough that I needed to leave. And I did. I moved back in with my mom and dad at, 27, 28 years old. And yeah, I had to go. I was learning how to crochet. You'd think that I would have been out partying, but there was just, I don't know what happened through that time that, I really, I was so normal at times, and then just, I don't know. And then I just lost myself.
So do you remember the day that you left?
No.
When we were talking about this the other day, we were talking about this, and interesting thing that I found out about, or I've realized about myself, is when I got my son back from the ministry, I don't remember that day. You know, people ask, oh, what was it like getting it back? I'm like, well, I'm sure it was really good, but I don't, you know, so it's funny how those.
Yeah. And it's almost like those things that we should remember, but I don't know, a lot of my memory is not there, or I've blocked it out, or there was something else going on, or, you know.
Mm-hmm. We've got a couple of people that you might know here. Missy's saying, hey, what's up, Missy?
Hey, Missy.
We've got Farron here. Hey, Farron. And we have Candace. What's going on, Candace? Thanks for watching, guys. So, something that I often wonder, because I've been through things like this, how did you handle being out of the toxic environment? You get so used to being in these toxic relationships, it becomes normal. What was it like when all of that toxicity was gone?
I found chaos, right? So it's kind of funny that you asked this question, because a couple of years after I had left this man, I met who is now my ex-husband. But so when I met him, he was like small town farm boy, and he treated me with respect and kindness.
Where did you meet him?
In Allen, Saskatchewan, at a bar. I think I met everybody at a bar.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, but you know, I remember often wondering, like, what's wrong with me? Like, why are things going so well? You know, it's like I deserve the chaos, or it was always something wrong with me if it wasn't chaotic.
Mm-hmm. So you met someone, and then things went back to normal for you for a while?
Yeah. So for probably only a year, to be honest with you, because I was that person. I wanted the house, I wanted the family, I wanted the car, I wanted all these things. And then when I got them, like, it wasn't enough. Like, I had the perfect life, but it wasn't enough. So it was only a matter of time before, you know, Daina was down at the town bar drinking with all the other guys in town, and, you know, doing things she shouldn't have been doing. And, you know, this kind of brings up a memory for me of, you know, he was at work one night, I was in the bar till closing, and a bunch of us were going to go skidooing. And I was in such a hurry that I came home, I changed into my winter clothes, they picked me up, we went skidooing. I don't remember coming home, but I remember waking up in the morning, and my ex-husband is yelling at me and freaking out because the whole house was full of exhaust, Danielle. I had come home, I had parked my car in an attached garage. The house was full of exhaust. My children were in the house sleeping. I could have killed everybody. And my reaction was, who do you think you are treating me like this? You are not going to talk.
So you didn't feel any guilt at the time? Did you take any ownership, or what did that?
No, I got in my car, still half snapped, and went to work. Like, and I don't ever remember discussing it again.
So,
you know, like, I could have killed my family.
Yeah.
And I was the victim. I was the victim, you know?
Mm-hmm. So that marriage ended.
That marriage ended quickly. I did him a favor, Dad. I got the hell out of there.
Were you like, you're welcome, and like walked out the door?
No, but yeah, he deserves so much better what I was treating him, and he's got that now, so I'm grateful for that.
Do you have any kind of relationship with him now? Like, do you talk every once in a while, or?
Like when my son was getting married in Jamaica, I needed some information to get my passport, and I messaged him, and he looked through a bunch of boxes to see if he had any of our marriage certificates or anything. Like, if I needed to message him, like, or if I was to see him. And I'm also grateful for that.
Yeah. So where did you go? Marriage ends. Where you go?
Well, went back to Saskatoon and found a group of people that were like me and who wanted to party. And I went down hard. I went down so hard when I came back. My son stayed back in town because he was going to be graduating that year. So he was lucky enough to move in with a caring, loving family that took care of him his last year of school. And me and my daughter moved to Saskatoon, and it really just became a place where you can have your friends over and you can drink and you can do whatever you want. And mom's not going to be home most of the time. And that's how I functioned for a little while until I met somebody new. And then I became normal again for a little while.
So how old was your daughter? Sorry, how old was your daughter at the time when you moved back to Saskatoon and this was all?
I'm going to say she was probably 15.
Okay.
Yeah, probably 15.
And how was your relationship with her at that time?
Well, I mean, I think it was good because I just kind of let her, so something I know now, I wasn't a mother to her. I wasn't, lots of times I wasn't taking care of her, giving her her needs, because I was like, you're old enough. I'm doing what I'm doing. And I thought I was doing her a favor,
So you get into another relationship and things go back to normal again. Did you start to notice it? Did you start noticing a trend here?
Well, I know the trend now. But
but at the time.
Back then. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because that was part of me that even when I was single, right? I was like, I need to be with somebody. So maybe I related a little bit of that normalcy to it without really knowing it. But it was also filling the void, right? That's what it was.
Yeah. So you get into this relationship and things go back to normal for a little bit. What was life like?
It was good. Did a lot of, traveling and camping and,
traveling.
To Edmonton and that kind of traveling, not out of the country or anything, but, and he had some children who, I became close with. So we were like this Insta family, right? Until it wasn't enough anymore. And the drinking started heavy again. The kids were drinking at the house.
At what point does it start to go back for you? Is there a turning point for you, in these relationships where it's good and then all of a sudden one day you're like, oh, I could use a drink, what?
Well, it's not that I wouldn't.
What went away?
It's not that I think that I would start feeling like that person didn't care anymore, right? I wasn't enough. I don't think he really cares about me. So I would self-sabotage.
What did that look like?
Not good, because I was out running around being a tramp, right? That's what I was doing. But I was getting fresh attention, right? And so if I'm with somebody too long and then it becomes not enough, and then I'm second guessing if I'm even worthy of it or if they even care about me enough.
And then your daughter gets pregnant.
Yeah. So after that relationship
Wait a minute. So were you still in this relationship when your daughter got pregnant?
No. So this relationship ended, like they all did. And I got used to it. And then my daughter had come to me one day and told me she was pregnant. And I just remember feeling like I need to love her unconditionally and I need to support her and I need her to know that this is going to be okay. And I think a lot of that came from how I felt when I found out I was pregnant, right? At a young age.
Lived experience steered you in that direction.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
because I could
do you think
relate
that-
with her.
Yeah. And do you think that helped her at that time?
Oh yeah, like she has talked about like how easy it was to tell me, and how supported and loved that she felt. And you know, it was shortly after that I got a foster boy. So my daughter tells me she's pregnant, and then so I get a foster boy, and I have him for 6 months. And during this time, Daina stops drinking, Daina stops doing drugs, Daina even stops smoking cigarettes, right? Because I'm going to be this perfect person that somebody needs. Codependency, here we go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be there for my daughter who's going to have a baby, and I'm going to care for this boy who needs somebody to love him.
Mm-hmm.
But then he had to go back. And I can tell you that I don't even know if his bags were fully packed yet. And I'm making plans to go out that night. And I'm picking up alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes all over again, and hard. Because it seemed like when I stopped for a while, when I took a break, I needed to catch up on that time that I took off. And it was dangerous as hell.
Like something owed it to you.
Oh, yeah. Like I missed out. I need to make up for all this lost time. Right.
And that's when things got real dark, right?
Yeah. So it was shortly after that. My daughter ended up having my granddaughter. By the grace of God, I was clean. I was sober. I was laying in bed that morning. So I was able to take her to the hospital and be there for the birth of my granddaughter. But something I just thought of too is, you know, after she was born and she wanted me to run home and grab her stuff. Like I went home and grabbed her stuff, and I couldn't even not stop for a beer with some guy before I went back to the hospital. Like that memory just came to me now, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so then she lived with me for a while, and things were okay. But then one morning, you know, my granddaughter was maybe a month old, and my daughter woke up to a bunch of drug dealers in the house, a bunch of other addicts, piles of stuff all over the tables. And she's like, what is, like, I can't live like this. And my attitude was, if you don't like it, you know where the door is. This is my house. I'll do what I want here. Like, not even realizing what kind of life I was giving these people at that time, you know? So she moved out. I got fired from my job at that time. And I'm sorry, but any alcoholic addict's dream is 5-week severance pay. Like, come on, you know?
Yeah.
And so I had nobody talking to me. I had, you know, my parents weren't talking to me at the time. My daughter wasn't talking to me. My son and I had been very separated for a long time. I didn't really have anybody. So I went hard, you know, here I am, the victim again. And I did justified. Yeah.
Watch
out. Yeah. Anyway, so we, at the end of that 5 weeks, like I had to do a midnight move because I had no money coming in. I blew it all. And so I moved into a friend's basement and partied there for quite a bit through the time. But yeah, then it got to a point.
Okay. So we're going to take just a minute here. Viewers, tell us a little bit about your turning point. How did it get dark for you? Give us a few words in the chat. Let us know, and we are going to go into the turning point. Okay, so there are some people in the chat asking questions. We will get to those questions in the viewer's voice. I am also going to put a link in the chat right now. When the viewer's voice comes on, you can click that link or copy and paste it, and you can join the live stream and ask Daina a question yourself. So, Daina, what was your turning point?
Well, so the person's basement that I was living in, this is July 2011. She's out of town for the weekend. I got a call from my son the night before. I was unfortunately taking somebody to get drugs that I shouldn't have been. And he called me out on it. And I went home that night and I locked myself in the basement and I sat down there and I just remember thinking, I don't want to live anymore and I don't want to die and I don't know what to do. Like I just wanted all the feelings, all the pain, all the chaos, all the confusion, everything to go away. And I was scared because like I said, like I wanted to die, but I wanted to live, you know, like I was so confused. But I knew somebody that hadn't drank in 3 months. And to me, that stood out to me. And I just thought I have to phone this person. And so I phoned them and, you know, they saved my life. They talked with me on the phone. They told me I should go to addiction services. And I remember it being a long weekend. And that Tuesday I did. I was so desperate that I showed up at addiction services that Tuesday. And I shared a little bit with the intake person that I had met with. And that person that was receiving my words was somebody that was in recovery. And that was instant connection for me. And I think that while I was in addiction and while I was doing the partying and the chaos, like there was no real connection, right? Because I wasn't vulnerable. I was a victim, all of these things. I mean, maybe I was being vulnerable, but I probably wanted something out of it, right? So this was the first time that I felt that I truly felt connected to somebody who was maybe in the same shoes as me. And I ended up in the recovery community, you know? Okay. And
how did the community support you?
Oh, they were amazing. You know, they welcomed me. They told me just keep coming. You're gonna hear something here. And they gave me the tools that I needed. You know, they gave me their truth. They gave me comfort.
Did you still think that you were in charge, that you had this?
Down, I was so desperate and so hopeless when I got there. I had tried many times to stop on my own. I had tried to control it. It really scared me this time. This time was, I was dying. Mm-hmm. So I gave up.
Surrender.
Yeah, full.
How did spirituality come into play? Was that like a right away thing? Like it was like, oh God, you know, like right away, or did that come over time?
Well, I mean, in the beginning, it was just hope, right? Hope that I didn't have to do this on my own or be alone. And that's really what it started out as. And over time, I mean, that has evolved. Spirituality is a huge part of my life. I'm never alone. So it was hope for me. And it was seeing that other people could change their life and want to live.
And that gave you a new way to think. How did you get away from yourself? How did you get away from your thoughts?
I did a lot of praying. I did a lot of walking in nature. I just had to get out of my own head, right? I had to rely on the idea that I wasn't completely in control. And at that point, I didn't want to. So I gave it up every day. Every day I was committed to working with whatever was willing to help me.
And I mean, I know you now, and I know that you've been very prominent in these communities and you have helped a lot of people. How soon was it that you got clean, that you started finding meaning in serving others?
Well, I think it was probably a year or so into recovery. Because, or you know what, I was serving people speaking truth every time I spoke truth, right? Because that's what people were helping me when they didn't even know they were helping me. So, I mean, I was probably helping people when I didn't even know I was. But it wasn't until like, I couldn't help anybody else until I really started digging within myself, right? I needed to understand why I was doing the things I did, why I was feeling the way I think. Why did things happen to me? Why was I always a victim? Why was everybody around me such a-holes, right? But when I started doing that inner work and started seeing where I played a lot of parts in things, it started making sense. And, you know, looking back at even family origins and looking at like where my family came from and the hardships that they went through, you know, that intergenerational trauma is throughout this entire society. So it wasn't until after that I was able to really, I couldn't help anybody until I fully understood myself.
And were you willing to try and change these things? Like at what point did you turn inward?
Well, you know, when I really got honest with myself and started seeing why I was in such pain and seeing why I was hurting other people, or so selfish, right? Because those are a lot of the things that were really prominent in my life. I was able to really look at myself as somebody who wasn't a bad person. I was dealt some crappy cards, and like I had to survive the way that I could. And you know, that's sharing that with somebody, Dan, like, man, that was the first time that when I could be so open with somebody about things that I've done or situations that I've been through. That was the first time in my life that I proved to myself that I could be honest. The first time. And I mean, I didn't get clean till I was 35 years old. So, you know, getting that honesty and it really just, it allowed me to see that I was trying to survive on a battlefield that I knew nothing about. And a lot of those things that I seen and learned about were survival skills that I didn't need to survive anymore.
So it took you some time to stop trying to survive something that was no longer happening.
Absolutely. Like I really needed to be present and look at things for what they were, right? And stop building these stories in my head of assumptions of what I thought it always was, because my thinking was not good. I was a victim. It was always feeling sorry for me, so I couldn't think straight.
Yeah. Did you go running out right away and start trying to make things right in your relationships? Like, I'm sorry, and just like expecting the world to the clouds to part. And
honestly, if people heard me say I'm sorry, they're probably like, what, you know, because I said, no, yeah, here we go. No, I was really patient. Lived amends was something I did for a while, because I didn't even trust myself that this was it, right? I didn't know if I was going to go back out. I was like, I didn't want to keep apologizing like I had for 30 years. And so when I finally felt strong enough, which wasn't long, you know, I was probably 2.5 years in the program, in recovery. But one person, like my son, one thing you have to remember too is when you want to make things right, the other person isn't always willing, right? Mm-hmm. And you owe them that respect to let them be willing and ready, because we have to get there ourselves too, right? Just because we're there doesn't mean somebody else is going to be. And I had to grieve and pray and hope for the best for a good 5 years before, you know, I was able to sit down with my son and take accountability of the shitty mom I was and how much danger I put him in. And, you know, I just had to be accountable for that stuff.
So, so what is it like today? What have you found that, like, what do you do for maintenance in your recovery? What are some, do you have rituals? What does that look like?
Well, if I ever have a pit in the bottom of my stomach, I know something's not right and I need to look at something.
The gut never lies.
Gut never lies. You know, we don't trust that tuition like we should. And I do. I'm very aware. I try to be the best that I can be every day, and I'm not perfect and I make mistakes. But the great thing is like I have these tools that I can write these things immediately instead of waiting another 8, 10, 12, 14 years before I fix it, right? Because that's when everything's going to get clumped together and the weight is going to be too heavy. So I'm very aware. I pay attention. I do a lot of prayer and meditation. I stay connected with my spirituality. You know, I got to do it. And I'm always here for other people. That's, you know, but I've also learned to say no, because that's also taking care of myself. But that's how I take care of my recovery today. You know, I'm just very aware, and if things are going too good, Dan, something ain't right. Like I gotta figure out what's going on, because if things are going too good, something ain't right.
Yeah, no, and I've had that experience too. Have you ever had that experience where things are too good, that it's uncomfortable? It's just things are so good and you're so grateful and you're so happy that you just don't know what to do with it. You feel like
that's how I was at the beginning of recovery. I'm like, what's going on? Like, and it's because I wasn't causing chaos, right? So it was hard to not live with.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you're doing in your life today? You are a student, you are a grandmother and a mother. What is that like for you today? How is your relationships?
So, well, I'm working on some codependency stuff right now. I have a pretty unhealthy relationship with my daughter, and I know that I definitely have parts to play in that, and I need to figure that out. Because when we're not in control of situations, the only thing we can do is work on ourselves. I have a really good relationship with my son and my daughter-in-law. I'm lucky that I get to be a caregiver for my 1-year-old granddaughter full-time while I'm off of school doing it online. And my granddaughter Cadence, she just turned 10. And I'll be 10 years clean in July. And so we always say we're the same age, but she's a little bit older for a few months, you know? And I love that, because when I see her, she's my recovery, you know? As much as she's grown, I've grown. And I mean, I love comparing it like that. And yeah, I'm a full-time student at First Nations University working towards my Indigenous social work degree. I
will see you in the fall.
Yes, you will. And I'm excited for that. I've healed so much just attending that university, you know.
I've heard other people say that too.
There's so much healing to be done there, and it's amazing. But yeah, I'm part of the recovery community. I'm also part of another nonprofit organization called the Self-Alignment Center, you know, which also focuses on mental health. I'm really just filling my life with things that feed my soul, right? I get to be passionate today.
Isn't that wonderful? And you did some work when it got real cold there, didn't you? There was a camp set up for the disenfranchised somewhere in town, and you were heavily involved in that, weren't you?
Yeah, so I had seen that Winnipeg erected these teepees and were there for, you know, the homeless population when it got to like -30. And immediately when I seen that video, I contacted the gentleman that started it in Winnipeg. And within 2 weeks, we had one set up here in Saskatoon. And, you know, I was babysitting full time. I was going to school full time. And then we were doing that from 5 p.m. till 8 a.m. And it was exhausting. But the connections and the relationships and the people that were there, I missed a night at the camp because I babysat my granddaughter. And like, I missed the camp because I missed the people. And even now, like I volunteer for OPG, and when I volunteer, the patrol, I'm going to screw it up. Okitchitikawak patrol group. So
I saw that post today, and I tried talking about it in my class, and they said, "What's the name?" I'm like, I don't know. I can't say it.
I probably butchered it, but it's something like that. So it's a patrol group that goes in through Riversdale, Pleasant Hill. You know, we hand out water and snacks and watch for suspicious vehicles. But yeah, so I get to see some of the people that frequented through the camp, and it's called Saskatoon Community Caring Camp. And I'm hoping to start some cool-off stations this summer and hopefully have it running up full throughout next winter when it's cold, so people have a place to go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Daina, we are going to go into the viewer's voice, but before we do, I'm going to take you off screen for just a minute, and I am going to do my weekly shout outs. Okay?
Okay,
here we go. So every week I shout out my new YouTube subscribers. They are doing, I gained 19 new YouTube subscribers this week. I didn't get everybody's name. For some reason, I can't see everybody's name, so I'm sorry about that. But who I did see was Prestigious Peltier, a motivational speaker and mental health advocate out of Saskatoon. Check him out on YouTube. Give him a subscription and a like. I saw Carrie from KL Embroidery on Instagram. Thank you, Carrie, for your subscription, and thank you for buying our merch. It looks great, and thank you for the support. Lisa Warren from the Music Exchange. Check her out. Her channel on YouTube. She is an amazing harpist. We've got Michelle Hillman from Regina, Katie Beckler, Jill Marie. Thank you so much for your support. We cannot do this alone. Now, can I successfully go into the viewer's voice? I hope this is the right one. Here we go. Oh, I screwed it up. There we go. Oh, man. Here we go. I'm going to get little sticky notes and I'm going to put them on my screen because I can't see them. I can't see which one's which. So it's all just little black squares and I have to remember somehow. So we'll get better next week, Daina. Next week I'll be better.
Great and done fashion. I love it.
Yeah. we learn as we go, right? You know?
Yes. And you can't be perfect. Don't even try to be.
Nor do I want to be. That would be boring if I did everything right. So let's look at we had someone in the broadcast studio here. We had Adam, and he wanted to say something and then he went away. So, but anyways, here he is in the chat. So he wanted to say, Daina, can abused kids become abusers?
Well, that I know, that I know is true. We've discussed that even in school a lot of time. You know, you have to remember that children, like, they learn just like they do throwing a ball, right? So if they're being abused, they definitely can be abusers. It doesn't mean that all people abused, though, are abusers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Adam, well, thanks for the question. I hope that got you. Renee asked a question here, but it was for a specific thing, and I didn't. She probably was, Renee. She probably was.
Guaranteed I was.
Probably, yes. So there you go. Let's see. What else do we got here? We've got Melissa. She wanted to say that so proud of you, Daina. We've got Miles here saying thank you.
Welcome.
And what else do we got here? I know we've got a few. Oh, we've got Candace saying, give yourself some credit, Daina. Look how far you've come.
Thank you.
You're
I think sometimes every time I get another year of recovery, I still wonder how the heck that I got there, because, every day we're still doing work, right? It doesn't just happen where, okay, I'm stopped now, I'm in recovery, I'm done, right? Like it doesn't work like that. This is like daily work, daily awareness. But yeah, I mean, as long as I'm continuing to be aware and open and being outside of myself, I will be okay.
So I think what Candace is talking about here is the living amends. Do you believe in a living amend? What do you think?
Do I believe in it?
Do you believe that that's a thing? Some people don't.
Well, I think that I can be a different person and change my behaviors. It doesn't mean that should be the only amend that I give, right? Just because I was doing a living amend while I was practicing being somebody in recovery, I just didn't want to go say I'm sorry and mess it up, right? So I just did a living amend, which maybe I was just practicing being somebody in recovery. And then when I knew I could do it, then I fixed it.
Mm-hmm. Right on. We've got Owen here. Owen Pelletier, good job, Daina. I'm proud of you for your 10 years of sobriety.
10 years in July.
Mm-hmm. I watched Owen last night on Al Kaler's show. Did you watch?
Me too. I
know.
I sent him a message and said, this world's a better place with you, buddy.
Sure is.
Yeah.
We've got Donna. Hi, Daina. Great job tonight. And Dan, you too. Oh, thanks, Donna. You're a
Thanks,
peach.
Donna.
We've got Missy. I just love you a lot and am so grateful you have made it through all of this and are here now.
Me too.
Awesome. Thanks for commenting, Missy. We've got Debbie saying thanks.
Welcome,
what else
Debbie.
do we got? We've got Carrie saying thanks. We've got Candace saying it never ends, and that is very true. We've got thank you so much for sharing your story. And we have, I put in the chat, I'm like, Missy, join the stream. And she said, that sounds super official. So I guess she's not into that, but we'll get you. You're going to be in this box over here. Hang on. This box, Missy.
Yeah.
Someday you will be here, right here. Do you see Missy? Are you seeing?
She deserves to be there.
I believe that is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and now we've got Kendra. We've got Donna's daughter, Kendra. She is 2 years old and she realizes what a gift Daina is. Okay, Daina, do you have anything that you would like to say to the viewers out there or anybody that might be struggling?
Just, you're never alone. People are out there willing to talk about the things that are uncomfortable. And if you think that you're the only one that has maybe done or experienced something, you're very wrong. And that's one thing too, right? Like anybody I speak to, I don't judge. I have no right to judge anybody for what anybody does. I've done enough in my past to know that things happen, but we can fix that stuff. So yeah, just reach out. There's so many resources out there. I'm an open book. It's hard. Like I said to Dan, every time I share my story, it comes out different. I don't know. The things that are meant to be said are said. And yeah, just don't keep secrets that aren't yours to keep, right? Especially with abuse, domestic, sexual. Yeah, just you're never alone.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being with us tonight, Daina. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. And we will let you get back to your evening. Take care, my friend.
Dan, thank you so much for inviting me.
We'll talk again soon.
You
Bye-bye.
betcha. Bye.
Okay. So let us move into the call to action. I'm going to get this right someday. Okay. Fostering change is our primary purpose here at Hard Knocks Talks. We are amassing piles of people with years of lived experience. If you would like to contribute to ending the stigma around emotional pain, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Like and comment your thoughts on our posts. Let us not gather in an effort to showcase our leaders' shortcomings, as there are none among us without challenges. Let us come together with our lived experience as a resource that has the power to engage new thought processes, promote new ideas, to broaden the spectrum of care, and to show the world that the lie is dead. We do recover, and we're here to show you how. Good night. That's the wrong one. That's the wrong one too. Oh my gosh. You know what? I don't even know what to say about that. Okay, well, the right one is actually...
I spent 23 years living in addiction.